Thank you for joining me again. This tutorial is going to be right-handed binding off. This is going to be binding off in the knit stitch first. And then I'll do some in the purl so you can see how that looks as well. Here I'm going in and I'm just going to knit a stitch regularly. So here's where we start the binding off. We knit one more stitch, and then we take our left needle, go into the first stitch that we knit, then we lift it off over the new stitch we just did. Sorry, I got out of the frame there. Here. So we knit one more stitch. There we go. You go into the stitch that we knitted before, and let me see if I can get this closer to you. So we lift that stitch off over the right hand needle and drop it off. Then we knit another stitch. Sorry, it's been challenging keeping this in the frame right now. So we take the old stitch and lift it off over the new stitch. Knit one more stitch. Go back into the old stitch, lift it off over the new stitch. And there we go. And do some more of these. Knit one, and we're lifting the old one off over. Knit one, lift one off over. And I'll do a couple more of these, then I'll show you what it looks like. Then we'll continue on. A little bit more, and when I get towards the end, I'll bind off and purl for you. Okay. So, here's the bind off edge here. Looks like just little knit stitches, but that's the edge. I'll do a few more here, and then we'll do some purl stitches. Knit, lift off, knit a stitch, lift the first one off, knit another stitch, lift another one off. In some patterns, they actually have you knit off and they have you bind off in pattern. So those ones, it's not tricky at all. It's just something new getting used to. I'm kind of rambling to fill up space here while I'm continuing along. But for instance, you could have a knit 2, purl 2 rib, and you could bind off in that pattern. You don't have to bind off and knit all the way across or and purl all the way across. Sorry, this is really fuzzy quality here. As I could get some help learning how to edit photos better, I'll start taking them with my macro lens camera and see if that helps, but I don't know if it will help because it tries to refocus itself. We're getting towards the end here. But there's our little happy bind off edge. I'll do a few more. It just is a very awkward angle to be knitting at with the camera between me and my knitting fingers here. Sorry, I'm not able to keep it perfectly in the screen. We'll try to find a way to fix that later. Okay, so I don't have too many more stitches here. I'm going to show you how to bind off and purl. So I bring my yarn forward and I purl a stitch. And then it's still the same thing, lifting off that second stitch and dropping it. Then you purl another stitch and lift that one off. Purl another stitch and lift that one off. I'm going to switch back to knitting and finish the bind off and knit. This is just a silly little washcloth. I'm writing a washcloth pattern for one of the future tutorials. I am really planning on writing a lot of patterns so that way as you move along and watch different tutorials you could print up the patterns that go along. Now, once you only have one stitch left, you can cut your string and you bring it through the loop and pull, and that's it. Then you have your bound off edge. You see how it kind of reverses right where I did the purl? So it reverses the angle of the braided edge. When you bind off and knit, you usually get the braided edge on one side. The purl would kind of reverse it. You can see how it tries to start leaning to the other side here for those few stitches. On the opposite side, they're on this side where the purl was. Figured I'd just show you. Okay, so pretty soon there will be a few simple dishcloth, washcloth patterns, just as a really simple project to learn, just to practice some stitches. We have a scarf pattern already up on my knitting tutorials for left-handed and right-handed knitting. So if you're wanting to look for a beginning project, we have all the tutorials you need here for now. We have slip knot, casting on, the knit stitch, and now we have binding off. I even have one simple tutorial on picking up a dropped row. So pretty soon we'll be able to get into some more complicated stuff. I have just the purl left to go on both right and left-handed, and we can start to really get into some fun stuff like cables, ribs, and they won't be coming too quickly. They each will take time because I'm going to have to knit the full pattern, and then, well, I'm going to have to knit a whole piece as I'm writing the pattern, so that way you at least have an example on the pattern of what it is you're going to be knitting in picture, and then I film the tutorial after that. So it's going to take a little time, but I have a lot of big plans, and all of those written tutorials are free. So feel free to look around, and I have a couple miniature food tutorials because that's my regular business, and I will be adding to those as well. Thank you so much. If you're wanting to see specific things, let me know in the comment section. Thank you so much.